So I just made a purchase, my first ever Honda. Welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm gonna do a lot of things to this CRV, including figuring out this brake line leak, replacing it with some brand new line so I can stop, and figuring out why the headlights aren't working. Neither one of them was turning on, but don't worry, I got that fixed. And then I completely failed when I was trying to pull the car up on all four ramps at the same time. I also replaced a couple of body panels to make it look a little better. The whole goal of this video is to take this non-functioning, non-drivable CRV and make it a functioning, acceptable daily driver. I just dropped $400 on this 2000 Honda CRV with 241,000 miles on it. But for $400, you can't be too picky. A couple things immediately that need to be addressed is the brakes. The brake pedal goes almost to the floor and the brake light is on, so I'm thinking I have a brake leak or something. All right, I made it home with the CRV yesterday. Had to go right away, so I didn't do much with it, but here she is. In decent shape, except for big dent on the door and some damage to the hood. Now, when I was driving back, I mentioned that the brakes sucked. You'd hit the brakes and the pedal would go way down before actually engaging the brakes. And after that, they were fine. If I look at this rotor, there's still rust on the top of it. And I drove, 30 miles home yesterday. So that rotor is not clamping, or that caliper is not clamping on the rotor. This one is. I also noticed a little bit of a pull to the side when I would brake. It's pretty much empty on brake fluid. So there is a strong possibility that there is a small leak. So I'm gonna fill it up and bleed it and see if that won't fix the problem. There are a couple of reasons why it might be low on brake fluid. One might just be because the brake pads are worn. As the brake pads get thinner, that piston, the caliper piston, extrudes out more and holds more fluid right behind the piston. So it's possible that just because they're worn and nobody kept checking the fluid level, that there's no leak. It just all is sitting in the calipers. The other possibility is that I do have a small leak, and I should be able to check that when I actually have fluid. Okay, so I'm driving the CRV, and immediately after adding the brake fluid, I pumped the pedal a little bit, and now I can feel it start to engage, the brake actually start to do something a little earlier on in the pedal, but it's still not quite right. It's super slippery out here, which is nice because the whole road is covered in snow. So what I actually can do is I opened the door and I looked out, and when I slam on the brake, I can look at the back wheel and it keeps on spinning. I'm holding the brake, and I looked over at the front wheel and the back wheel. When I slam on the brake, the front wheel locks up and just keeps sliding, and the back wheel just keeps on spinning. So that back brake, that one for sure is not doing anything at all. So obviously, based on that test I did there, the driver's side rear wheel and the passenger side front wheel are not getting any braking whatsoever. So I still am not sure that it's a bad master cylinder. I think maybe there's just so much air in the line, even after adding fluid, they just need to be bled out. So I'm going to pop these bleeders off. I'm going to start with the back passenger wheel. And by absolute miracle, the bleeder screw came out. It was a tiny little 8mm all rusted. Check this out. This is my snap-on brake bleeding tool. This was about 200 bucks. Bought it off the Snap-on truck. No, I'm just kidding. I made this thing years and years ago. It's the best tool that I've ever come up with for bleeding brakes. I have one of those, you know, hooked to your air compressor, vacuum type brake bleeders, and nothing works quite like this. All it is a tube. I think I got a little zip tie just tight in there to make sure that the tube goes to the bottom of this little naked juice can, and it allows me to bleed the brakes by myself. It does help a little bit if you have some fluid already in here, so that when you release the pedal, there's some, it sucks liquid back up, not air. So then you're filling the whole hose with brake fluid. All right, so as I was pumping the brakes, I noticed this dripping here. I'm gonna go and see what that's about, if that's brake fluid. The car also had a bunch of snow on it, so it's kind of dripping from everywhere. Yeah, look at that. That is definitely brake fluid. We got a line leak right there for sure. Oofta. So I thought it would be cool to try to drive the CRV up on 4 ramps all at once, but it did not work at all. As you can see, it just didn't quite have the power and the ramps just slipped. So I gave up on that idea, put it up on just the front wheels, and then jacked up the back. So I took out some like 10 millimeters, I think, and got this plastic shield out of the way. Now I've got all these lines kind of in one unit. I'm pretty sure it's this second one in that is leaking, but I'm gonna do a little filming and see if I can figure out or confirm that that's the one when I hit the brake pedal. One more. Okay. The driver's side rear brake, the one that we were just bleeding, that's the line that you saw leaking underneath the vehicle. So I'm going to take this off here, replace it from here, and just go back up toward the front of the vehicle until I find a quality portion of it, and then I'll just couple it in. All right, I'm gonna get this end put on first outside the vehicle so I have a little more work or room to work. This is an M10 nut there, and it is 3/16 line. So if you've never used one of these, they're pretty slick. Not the easiest tool, but it's definitely the cheapest. And this is the one you get at AutoZone, if you were to go rent it at your local auto parts store, you get one of these. First thing you do is cinch it down with this little insert, and that puts the first bend in it. This puts the outer flare in it, and then this one is just the cone, and that puts the inner flare. So this is called a double flare, which is different than like a single flare or a bubble flare. So now I got that inner flare, and that should do it. They don't all look perfect, but honestly I think this one looks pretty good. I'm not the best with this tool yet. right, so I got to a pretty good part of the brake line here, and I did that same process where I put a nut on either side. Now I've got a coupler here. Now I'm probably gonna get in the comments, oh my gosh, you need to replace the whole line, or you should replace those other lines, they look awful. Well, my question is, where does it end? There's many things on this vehicle that don't look as good as they were when they were new, but if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The goal is to get this thing drivable, not perfect. All right, so I'm back in the CRV driving after replacing the brake line, and I've led the back driver side brake and the front passenger side brake, and it feels a lot better now. I'm almost positive all the wheels are working now. I'm gonna do a couple drive by the camera, hit the brakes, and make sure, same test as before, but this time I expect to see all the wheels locking up. Okay, so now that the CRV is all good with the brakes, there's a few more mechanical things I want to do to it. Like, I want to get the exhaust leak fixed. The muffler broke off the pipe, so I'm going to take it to my favorite muffler shop for that. But until then, I'm going to go over just a few things under the hood, check the spark plugs, the fluids, and make sure it's all good. The goal is not to do a full restoration on this old 240,000 mile CRV. Just want to make it a decent daily driver. Take it from, you know, not roadworthy to a functioning beater. So looking at the coils, I don't see any oil, or not much oil at least, so I think our valve cover gasket's probably fine. I'm just gonna take out the plugs one at a time and make sure everything's, you know, okay. I have no reason to believe there's any problems. I'm not getting a misfire, but if they look like something that's just, you know, have never been changed, I might go ahead and swap them. Not too bad on that coil. I'm just looking for if one, you know, if one of them is just soaked in oil. That would be a valve cover job for sure, but not too bad. A little bit of oil on top of that plug. I just put the old spark plugs back in for now, but I ordered new ones online because they were much cheaper. I'm gonna check the air box, or the air filter. Oh, that looks pretty new. A little dirty, but I'm guessing that this was replaced not too long ago. I'm gonna roll with that one. Looks just fine. Check the coolant right here. It's got coolant, so I don't know if you can see down in there, but definitely got coolant. That's a good sign. The engine oil, let's see what we got here. That's a funny dipstick. This dipstick goes right in between the two of the tubes in the exhaust manifold. Oh gosh, that's not good. Let me do that again. We got a little bit of oil on the bottom of the dipstick there. So yeah, that is an issue. Gotta get some oil in this thing. Obviously that was in the plan. I'm gonna be doing a oil change and topping it off with the proper amount of oil. So, I mean, it's a Honda. Apparently they don't need oil. It runs like a top. All right, so underneath here, I'm going to pull this oil drain plug. See how much oil we got in here. Oof. Well, we do have some oil, that's for sure. Yeah, it looks pretty nasty. No coolant mix or anything though. So that oil looked pretty dirty, but at least there was some in there. I got the filter replaced. The filter was a total pain in the neck to reach up and get out. I definitely couldn't film it because I could barely even reach it. Got the new filter in and the plug back in. So now I'm gonna put in 5 quarts of oil here. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use this jug, and from my catch pan, I'm gonna dump the catch pan into this jug and see how much it fills up, because I'm curious how much oil came out of this. That'll give us a little indication. It obviously won't be precise, but it'll give me an indication of what was in there, because I don't think I was getting a reading on the dipstick at all. This is weird oil. I've never used this high mileage, full synthetic 5W30. I've never used this specific oil. It doesn't look very clear. It looks like yellow brownie, almost like honey. Huh. I'll have to strip a little bit. It's hard to tell because some of that's just up on there, but I think I have about 4 quarts came out. So that means we're about a quart low, which doesn't quite make sense, because if we were only 1 quart low, it would have read on the dipstick some. Now I did see a little bit of something on the dipstick, so I think it probably was just down at the very end. Maybe there were, I mean, it's not exact because I had a little bit of oil. I think I had a little bit of something in the catch pan already, so I'd say probably had 3.5 to 4. It's supposed to have, I put 5 back in, that's what they recommend to do. So I'd say it was 1 to 1.5 quarts low on oil. So I'm honestly not too worried about that. It's a Honda, it'll be fine. All right, everything in the CRV is working well. The brakes are all good. I did the oil change and we got a good level. So now it's time to go get that leak in the muffler fixed. I am headed to the exhaust shop. It's not even worth trying to do it myself because these guys will fix something like that for like 60 bucks. So I'm not a very good welder. So this is kind of always what I do. Just take it in here, take the stress off my shoulders. So I'm gonna try to get, if they'll let me go in there and take a little video of what's broken, and then I'll show you the final product.
So I just cut it off up here, and I just make this whole pipe with some bends in it and everything. Up here, it's starting to get a little thin. It's not crazy, you know.
Yeah. So this is what the exhaust looks like now. It ended up being about $100 because they had to use a fair amount of pipe and do quite a few bends and different welds and whatnot. But $100 got the job done. Now no more exhaust leak. All right, check this out. I'm just leaving the U-Pull salvage yard. Look what I found. A silver hood for the CRV, and underneath here, a non-dented door. So I've got all the, I can pretty much take care of all the dents that the CRV has with those. It's just got the big issue with the passenger side, or the driver's side rear door, and then the dents on the hood. So hopefully this will just spruce it up, make it look a little bit better. So I got the new hood on and I'm pretty happy with how it looks. It's not a perfect hood, but it's a lot better than having a bunch of dents right there. But last night I noticed that the headlights in the CRV don't work. So now I got to figure out what's going on with those. Is it a switch? Are the bulbs just burnt out? Is it a fuse or something? So I'm gonna do a little research, try a few things and see if I can troubleshoot why the headlights are not turning on. Fortunately, I have the original owner's manual in not so great shape, but I'm gonna see if I can find information on the fuses to see which fuse is for the headlights. This looks like it. The interior fuse box, under hood fuse box. Most likely the headlights are going to be under hood. Right there, fuse number 6. So it's going to be that. That looks like a relay there. Could be a fuse, I'm not sure. That looks like a relay. All right, right here. Here's fuses on the interior fuse box for the right headlight low beam, left headlight low beam. So I'm gonna check these 3 things. I'll check fuse number 21 and 22 on the interior fuse box, and I'll check relay 6 on the under hood fuse box. So I'm gonna be testing the relay first because it controls both headlights, which seems more likely to me than both of the separate fuses blowing. And I was totally wrong. That's not a relay. That is, I think, just an old school fuse. Yeah, it looks fine. Sweet. So this fuse is just fine. I'm getting continuity. All is good. Let's head and check out the other ones inside. All right, so in here, I've got those 2 10s are going to be the headlight low beams. Let's see. Oh man, okay. So we got power to both of those. So those fuses are just fine. Let me turn the headlights off. All right, so the headlight switch is off and now nothing to those. Okay, so the headlight switch works just fine. We've got power to that main fuse, and we've got power to the individual fuses. Now let's go check actually at the light and see if we're getting power to the lights. Yucky. So out of these 3 wires, one of them is ground, one of them is low beam, one of them is high beam. I have the low beams turned on right now. So, and this is the only one that has power. So this must be the live for the low beams. I'm gonna go turn the high beams on and see if I get power to the other one. So I'm not getting any power to the low beam one, but now I'm getting power to that one. So that's the high beam one. And then this third one would be the ground. So I obviously won't light up on there. So that tells us that that's the headlights. The actual bulbs. So that was a pretty quick and easy troubleshoot that took maybe 10 minutes in the freezing cold to do that without just going and buying parts. I didn't want to just go buy 2 headlights because you can't really return headlights. Once you open them, you can't return them. If it had just been like one of them that was burnt out, that's probably what I would have done, would just be go buy one. But it seemed fishy to me that both were not turning on. I thought maybe it would be the switch or the relay or fuse or something. But I'm glad I did that. Now I can just, with confidence, go buy a couple headlights and pop them in. Not worrying about wasting money or throwing parts at the car. Okay, now it's the moment of truth. I'm gonna turn them on, see if they light up. All All right, so it turns out that's all it was a couple of headlight bulbs. No big deal. I'm still glad I went through and did all the diagnostic to make sure before I went and just spent money on parts. It's always good to know exactly what you need before you start buying stuff. Check this out. You can actually see in the headlight that one filament was broken. All right, now I'm gonna replace this dented up door with the one I got from the junkyard. First thing I gotta do is get this wiring unplugged. Let's see if I can just get this out by hand. I've got a 12 millimeter right here. And now the 4 12 millimeter hinge bolts. All right, now I'm gonna test the locks. Let's lock that. Unlock it. There we go. That works well. I'll test the window. Gotta put the key in the ignition. That one works. Moment of truth here. I'm nervous. Oh no. The window regulator doesn't work, if it even has one. I should check that. So actually I'm looking at the inside of this door. There's a window regulator, but I saw this plug and I was like, oh yeah, there's gotta be control. And on the door card, there's a window control. So I'm thinking when I plug that in, then it should work. All right, so I took this off of the old door panel. I'm gonna plug this in here just to test. Oh, so close. It wants to move, but it's stuck. But I think it might just be frozen. I might just have to break this loose a little bit. I think it's just frozen in there because there's ice all over this thing. So the window was just frozen, so it's going now a little bit, very slowly. It goes down faster than it goes up. But I think it's just still kind of frozen. There's lots of ice around. So I'm just gonna get it up and then check it again when I thaw the thing out. But I know the motor works. All right, so I got the interior door panel back in. Everything's working, except this is stuck still because it's frozen. Looks good on the outside. I wasn't able to get the black handle transferred over just because the black handle that was on the one broke. But now I've got to eventually get this taken off so that it'll look all nice and natural. There's the door looking good and the hood that looks good. Much improvement. All right, so I'm back under the hood and I'm gonna replace all the spark plugs. As you saw earlier, they were not horrible, but it's easy to just put in new ones, so I'm gonna do that. First thing I gotta do is gap all these. If you don't know how to gap a spark plug, you just need one of these little gapping tools. And all you're gonna do is slide it in between the leads there on the smallest side and slowly rotate it till it stops. So I wanna be gapping these plugs to about 0.044. As you can see right here, it's at about 0.040. So that's probably pretty close, but how I'm gonna open the gap is use this end of the tool and just apply a little leverage, bend it out. Okay, and you can see I've gone too far. So I'm just gonna bend that back a little bit. What you don't want to do, you don't want to try to pry it up like that because you'll be pushing against that lead there. It's kind of tough to get them perfect. There we go. So we're right there at 0.044. So I've got the gap set on all the spark plugs. Now I'm going to take out all the coils and remove all of the spark plugs. All right, now the engine runs fine, but I'm just curious, so I'm going to run a compression test on all 4 of these cylinders and compare the numbers. On the first cylinder I'm doing, we have 180 PSI. All right, on the second cylinder, 180 PSI also. Yep, pretty close to 180, maybe more like 170, but in spec. All right, and if this last one has right around that same compression, we know we've got a good engine. At least good compression. This is a dry test. I didn't put any oil down there, which would make it a wet test. You'd probably get higher compression then. Last one, fingers crossed. $180. So we got good compression on all cylinders. Now I'm just gonna pop these new spark plugs in, get them all finger tight. That is, it's good to know that we've got good compression across the board, about 180. You're just looking for them all to be consistent. There's not a specific number you're looking for because it does depend a little bit on, you know, if you sprayed anything in there, if there's oil in there. But it looks super healthy, so that's good. Now, I didn't have to do that compression test. I didn't have any reason to believe that it had bad compression. It's not misfiring or anything, but something I just like to do when I'm doing the spark plugs, since it's super easy, especially on a 4-cylinder like this. Super easy to just get in there and do it, and you get a little reassurance. And if you're selling the car, you know you're not selling a piece of junk. You can even use that maybe in the ads that you just tested the motor and it was good. So it's just a good idea to do. Now I'm going to torque them all down to the spec, which is 13 foot-pounds for the B20. I'll just pop all the coils back in. Now I had pulled the fuel pump fuse to do the compression test, so I'll throw that back in there. Okay, so I'm here with the CRV. It's all done. We got everything finished on it. Replaced the hood, replaced the back door here, fixed that leaky brake line so the brakes are working really good. And we also checked the compression just to make sure that the engine was healthy and put in new spark plugs when we were in there. Thank you guys so much for watching. This was a really fun project. I had fun diagnosing the different problems and repairing them. All in all, with the purchase of the car, all the different parts, rounding up a little bit, I have a total investment of $785 in the car, which I'm very happy with. The Kelley Blue Book value for this car in my area is about $2,600, and that's what I believe I could get for it. So thanks again for watching. If you liked this video, please subscribe and check out the rest of the channel to see more content like this.